Hello, everyone. My name is Cecil. Welcome to a three-part series called I Felt Heard. This is part one. It's for anyone who is customer facing, prospect, relationship facing, account executives, account managers, SDRs, customer success managing directors. And honestly, it applies well beyond work. We've all been told that listening is important, that listening is better than talking. There's a reason we have two ears and one mouth. That is still absolutely true. Listening does matter, but feeling heard is the next level. It goes beyond simply listening. Feeling heard is about what the other person experiences. It's the difference between hearing words and creating understanding. This session is not about techniques. It's about what must be true before techniques work, before people trust our ideas, our recommendations, or our solutions. They need to feel heard. At its core, the session is about how we show up at the moment. Presence and intentionality are not soft concepts, they are prerequisites. If someone doesn't feel that we are fully with them, nothing else we do matters. On a very real biological level, when people don't feel heard or understood, the brain interprets that as a threat. The amygdala activates. Fight, flight, or freeze. Logic drops. Self protection takes over. Feeling heard is how we signal safety to another human being. In every stalled deal, strained relationship, or disengaged customer that I've ever seen, the issue wasn't the solution, it was the conversation. So when people say they didn't listen, they're not talking about hearing words. They're talking about not feeling understood, not feeling respected, not feeling safe enough to be honest. People shut down when they sense they're being evaluated, being rushed, or managed instead of met. Feeling heard begins when someone feels your full attention, not multitasking, not rehearsing a response, not steering the outcome. This is just as true at home as it is at work. Parents, partners, children, siblings, friends. When people don't feel heard, the response is always the same: withdrawal, defensiveness, or escalation. Let's take a moment here. Think about your last few important conversations with a customer, a colleague, or someone in your personal life. Did the other person leave feeling clearer, calmer, and understood? Or did the conversation move forward while something stayed unresolved? So, this is the presence check. Were you fully there or already prepping your response? People feel divided attention instantly, even when nothing is said out loud. So, what does I felt heard actually mean? When someone feels heard, their guard drops. They don't feel pushed towards a conclusion. They don't feel evaluated while they're speaking. They don't feel like they need to justify their thinking. People don't need us to agree with them. They need to know we understand them. This is where psychological safety shows up. When people don't feel rushed or judged, the nervous system settles. The amygdala quiets. Safety creates honesty, and honesty is what allows real understanding to emerge. So, this is a critical distinction. We can do all the right listening behaviors and still miss the outcome. Listening is a skill. Feeling heard is an experience the other person has. Success isn't measured by how well we think we listened, it's measured by how the other person leaves the conversation feeling. You could listen while distracted. You cannot make someone feel heard unless you are fully present. People feel the difference immediately in business conversations and in personal ones. Most of us do not interrupt out of disrespect. We interrupt because we're already forming our response. We're excited, we're angry. Understanding must come before responding every single time. This applies whether you're talking to a prospect, a teammate, your spouse, or your child. The brain can tell when someone is waiting to speak instead of staying present. I've seen customers evaluate multiple vendors where the products were functionally the same. What separated the decision wasn't the features, it was how the conversation felt. One side pushed urgency and certainty, the other slowed down, listened, and respected customers' reality. The decision did not feel risky. It felt obvious. In a business environment, especially new business sales and account growth, this matters even more. Our sales teams carry quotas. They have managers they're accountable to. Revenue targets are real. This is exactly why pipeline matters. A minimum 4x pipeline gives us breathing room. It allows us to make better decisions. Without it, prospects and customers can feel when we care more about our quota than solving their problem. Feeling heard removes pressure and creates partnerships. Most people hear words. Fewer people receive meaning. Meaning includes emotion, context, pressure, and what someone is hesitant to say out loud. People are constantly editing themselves in professional conversations and even in personal ones. Feeling heard happens when someone senses that you're paying attention to what's underneath, not just what's being said. People share more when they sense openness, when the other person is comfortable with uncertainty and doesn't feel rushed to sound confident or decisive. A large portion of what people are communicating isn't in the words at all. Tone, pace, posture, facial expression, eye contact, and silence all carry meaning. When we listen to the whole human being, not just the words, we get closer to what's actually being said. Repeating someone's words back perfectly doesn't guarantee trust. Emotional accuracy matters more. If someone is anxious, cautious, or overwhelmed, naming that respectfully creates connection. People open up when they feel emotionally understood. That's when real conversations start. Emotional accuracy requires humility. It means being willing to say, I might be missing something, or help me understand how this feels on your side. Or my personal favorite, let me fall on my sword. Chris Voss talks about this in his book, Never Split the Difference. He describes the power of labeling emotions, not to dramatize, but to acknowledge what's real. When emotions are named accurately, defensiveness drops and safety increases. We feel silence because we're uncomfortable, not because the other person needs it filled. Silence gives people room to think. And often, the most honest thing someone says comes after the pause, not before it. Silence creates safety when it's intentional. It tells someone they are not being rushed and do not need to perform. Vulnerability often shows up after the pause, both at work and at home. The moment a conversation becomes about us, our stories, our experiences, our need to sound helpful. Feeling heard disappears. Presence matters way more than performance. Trust forms when the other person feels they are the center of the conversation. This is really hard. When someone shares a story, it's natural to want to share ours. That's often how we show empathy, investment, and excitement. But many times it lands as interruption. Even with good intentions, the other person stops feeling heard. They stop sharing. Presence sometimes means holding your story back and staying with theirs. As many of you know, I have ALS. This whole concept of listening and feeling heard really hits home with me. Last summer, when I was first diagnosed, one of the doctors on my team was the palliative care doctor. Before even getting to know me or my wife and our situation, she was promoting tracheotomies, a feeding tube, all sorts of drugs. I wanted to share something personal. I walked away knowing that I needed to find another doctor. I didn't feel heard. Grace didn't feel heard. The doctor may have been clinically competent, but emotionally, I did not feel safe. And when you don't feel safe, trust disappears. That's how qualified, that no matter how qualified the other person is. Coincidentally, I now have another palliative care doctor, and he is recommending many of the same things that my previous one did. But because he took the time to get to know me, set up an environment where I felt heard, I was able to receive the information and advice that he was giving me. So before people trust what we recommend, they need to feel that we understand them. When people feel safe, they share. When they share, understanding deepens biologically, emotionally, relationally. Everything meaningful starts there. This is part one. It's the foundation. It's what we do to create a situation where people can be heard. The next session, part two, focuses on trust and momentum. Once you create the space that people can be heard, trust follows. Then momentum takes over. Part three is where I will bring the skills, the listening skills for you to be able to capitalize what creating an environment of feeling heard will eventually do for you, your business. The order matters. So this applies to everyone everywhere, customers, colleagues, parents, children, siblings, friends. So one last pause. Who in your world needs to feel heard right now? Take out a sheet of paper, write that person's name. Before the end of the day today, call up that person. Feeling heard is a human need. This work matters because people matter. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Stop. Sharon, what do you think?